And the
Well,
more
there you
you
go.
do it and the more you practice it,
Oh,
the
yes.
easier it becomes to see when you're out of balance, the easier it becomes to correct those imbalances. So, yeah, I think that is absolutely right on point with, kind of changing your mindset about divorce and about your relationship with your children and about your relationship with your former spouse. Right. And, and that is a great, again, we're really hitting these here, a great segue into the next question that I want, because it has to do with those arguments and those disagreements really that, get carried over from the marriage into co-parenting and into divorce. So how, do you have some tips or some ways that people can use personal leadership and the skills that you talk about in your book to overcome those arguments that have been carried over, and so that they don't keep feeding into them?
Right. Well, I think it's probably pretty obvious by now that one of the things that can be useful is if you can go to the source. If these arguments are repeated, what's the real source of them? What's the seed of those arguments? And you can't know that for another person, but you sure can find out for yourself. Because you can start exactly, what are my judgments about this? What are my emotions? What are my physical sensations? What is this really telling me? What's the real core of this? And when you come to the core of it, you've got clarity, and you've got more ease in your body, and you have a deeper sense of just knowing your own truth, I remember one of my driving questions when I was younger was, how do I know what I know? How do I know what's really true for me? Because I didn't.
Right.
And so, we've all had this time. I'm sure everybody on the call has had a time when you just knew something so solidly in your cells, in your bones, there's no emotion connected to it. It's just like this neutral isness, and you know it to be true.
I love that neutral isness.
And then you can speak from that. You just speak from that place. And that's what these situations are, especially giving us an opportunity, I think, to do. But you're not going to go to that depth with that clarity unless you sit down with yourself and do some real self-inquiry and, perhaps using these questions or some other process that people have.
Right. And I think one of the things that you hit on that I think is really important is that when you are engaging in these sorts of heated arguments, you are right in the thick of the emotion, and the emotion is what's driving this argument. Whereas when you take the step back, like you're saying, and you kind of, attend to it, and you say, why am I upset? Why am I mad that he did this? Why am I, why does this keep happening? Why do we keep having these arguments about X, Y, and Z? When you take that step back and you really evaluate it, you are removing yourself from the emotion.
Yes, you are.
And, the fastest way to start a war is to talk about your emotions. To say, you're making me do this, or you always do that, and it makes me so angry. Well, then people become defensive, and then their emotions kick in, and so then you kind of reach this gridlock. But I think it's beautiful that you say, no, just take a step back.
Yeah. And maybe you have to end the conversation and give yourself some space. That's what I do.
Right. And one of the things that people, the trap I think that people fall into with divorce is that it has to be solved right now. And I think that with co-parenting, once it's all over but the shouting, really, once you are divorced and you no longer deal with each other on a daily basis, except for your children, then what happens is that you feel like, we have to settle this right now because this is what I want and this is what has to happen. But really, unless it has to do with a life or death emergency, it doesn't have to be dealt with right then and there. And, and I think that more can be accomplished quickly and with less hurt feelings and bruised egos if you do take that step back.
Yeah. It's much better to take some time and find the true clarity inside yourself. And then speak from that place. Right. Yeah.
So that when you're talking, you're not saying, you're not using those hurt words that will lead to that war.
So you're not so reactive at all. You are taking responsibility for your own heart and your own emotions, and it's much more sustainable when you speak from that deep truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, given all of this and the information that we're giving people, I think that the next thing that I would like to ask you is where do they start? Because, you know, I'm sure they're listening and they're saying, okay, you know, this is great, but, you know, we're in the middle of this right now. We're right in the thick and we're in the trenches. How do I start?
Yeah. Well, I would say as soon as somebody hangs up this telephone, you sit down with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a pen and you get a piece of paper. Because I like to write things. Or maybe you go take a walk and you simply say, okay, whatever is going on right now, I'm here for it. What is it? And if you divide it into judgments, emotions, and physical sensations, it might be a little bit easier. I mean, the place to start is right here, right now.
Absolutely. And
so what else are you asking me that I'm not quite answering?
No, it's not that. Actually, you answered it. It's I'm a writer too, and I'm actually writing down the things that you say because I want to remember them. And I'm a tactile learner, so I write everything down.
Yeah,
so as you're talking and you're saying right here, right now, absolutely. And I'm shaking my head and I'm writing, you know, and I'm writing that down because it is important. It is important to say, you know, if the people have signed up for the summit and, you know, and they're listening to this, they obviously want change.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
They obviously want things to get better for them in their situation, for themselves and for their children. And so I think that that's an amazing step to just say, hey, you know what? Yeah, let's just take a step back and sit down and write down what is it that I want? What is happening right here and right now?
Inside me.
Inside me. Right. It's not and I think the big distinction there is it's not necessarily writing down what's happening right here, right now with everything in your situation. You know, my ex is taking me back to court. That's what's happening right here, right now. No, what's happening right here, right now is that you're responding to.
Right. And you may think of a situation that is happening in the external world, but it's what are my emotions about this right now? What are my judgments about this? What's my body telling me right now?
Right here and right now. And I think that
and then what you know, when you take all that together and you're kind of quiet with it or you take a walk with it, what's the truth that's starting to bubble up here, you know?
Right.
Because
I think
bottom line, it is about being more emotionally skillful. It is about taking right action. It's not just, you know, looking at myself because I have nothing else to do. Because we really do need to move in the world, and these things need to have resolution at some point. Yeah?
Right. They do. They do. And I know for me, and I think you can attest to this, going through the life transformations that I think are genuinely not just unique to women, because there are men who do embrace these sorts of life changes, but I think it's really predominant for women that, you know, women are in a constant state of growth. And I think that we are constantly asking ourselves the hard questions. Sometimes we're hiding from them. You know, sometimes we resist that growth a little bit. But I think that what I found to be true is that as I go through each stage of my life and I grow and I change and I progress, you know, I do stop and I ask myself and I do stop and I take account of what's happening. And I think that's true for most women, is that we do want to grow and we do want to change. And I'm thankfully not the same person I was when I was 16. Although sometimes I miss her because she had a lot more fun than I have right now some days. But I think that that these are all really important topics for women to understand, that your growth is continual, and to know that it's never too late to stop and change the direction that you're going in.
That's right.
If you don't like what you see.
That's exactly, yes, that's really true, Heather. And just to return again to something that's practical, like after the phone call is over, to take a little time to create a vision. How do I really want to go through this? Or what are the qualities that I really want to hold that will really, really support me and make me feel alive and alive and vital is a really It's fun and it's important, and it acts like not a lighthouse. Well, I guess it could be a lighthouse, but a lighthouse, is standing on rocks and it says danger here, don't crash. Mm-hmm. But a beacon for somebody.
Right.
Actually.
Right. And yeah. I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think that your work, again, although a lot of the topics that you brush on in your work is about cultural differences, I think that does tie into divorce because, we are a little community in our families.
Absolutely.
And inside our families, there are the differences, just like there are in any other community, in any other culture.
Yeah.
And I think that incorporating these practices into your relationship with your former spouse, into your relationship with your children, and your relationship with yourself, then when you move forward, the next person that you attract into your life is going to get the best version of you that there is.
Well, they will, and you'll also have a what can I say, a barometer or a thermometer that says, "Whoop, this works for me and this doesn't."
Right.
This is healthy for me and this isn't.
Right. You'll be much more in tune to those, and I'm going to use the quotes here, the red flags.
Yes. Yes.
Of things coming up and say, no, you know what, this doesn't fit with my vision, and that's okay that they don't fit with my vision, but I want to stay true to what my vision is.
Right.
And so they'll have more tools for that. So I just want to thank you again for speaking with us today. It has been wonderful.
Thank you, Heather.
And
I love to talk about it.
Yeah.
I love to do it too, I have to say.
Yeah, I do too. I really find that when I take the time to really practice being here and being now and not being so attached to the outcomes of things, that my life flows so much more smoothly. Mm-hmm. And I know just a personal detail, I got a tattoo of the Om symbol, and everybody was like, "You're a Christian. Why would you do that?" And I said, because it's a reminder to me to stay centered and focused on myself and my thoughts and my feelings and my prayers, because the times in my life that have gone completely out of control are the times that I lost sight of that.
Yes, that's so well said. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you to speak with us today, because I think that your work is tremendous in providing insight into how powerful that can be, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are.
Oh, it has nothing. Well,
it has nothing.
You could say it has nothing, and it has everything to do with it. But.
Right. It does. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And if anybody listening would like more information about Dr. Ramsey and her work, you can visit the Personal Leadership Seminars website at www.plseminars.com. And thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather.